All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we are going to really dive deep into some pretty uh, heavy stuff.
Yeah, heavy stuff.
Yeah, we're talking global warming, and we've got some seriously intense source material here that really lays out like the whole picture, the causes, what's happening because of it, what we could do about it, the whole thing.
All of it, yeah.
Yeah, all of it. So I'm curious, for you listening right now, like, what's your take on all this? What are you most concerned about with this whole global warming situation?
Well, I mean, one thing's for sure. The source we've got here, it doesn't mess around. It says straight up, Earth is in big trouble because of global warming, a crisis that, threatens life on Earth as we know it.
Wow. Okay, so that's like not messing around.
Yeah, and when scientists use a word like crisis, they're not kidding around. They're sending up a huge red flag.
Right. It's not just like a little problem. It's a big deal. So before we really jump into the specifics, can we just quickly like define some stuff? Because, the source mentions the greenhouse effect. Yeah. Could you maybe just break that down for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So think of it like this. Earth is wrapped in this blanket of gases, right?
Okay.
These are greenhouse gases. And these gases, they trap some of the sun's heat, which is a good thing because that keeps the planet at a temperature where, we can all live.
Right.
The problem is when we burn fossil fuels, we pump way too much of these gases into the atmosphere. So it's like we're making the blanket thicker.
Uh-huh.
And that means more heat gets trapped and
Yeah.
the planet warms up.
Ah, okay. So it's like we're cranking up the thermostat on Earth.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
So speaking of fossil fuels, our source really pinpoints those as the main driver of this whole crisis. What exactly makes them so problematic?
Well, you can think of fossil fuels as like ancient sunlight, right? It's energy stored from millions of years ago. And when we burn them, whether it's to, power our cars, heat our homes, whatever, we release all that carbon that was trapped inside, along with other really nasty greenhouse gases. And it's not just a little bit either. To give you an idea of the scale, we're talking about the equivalent of 100 million barrels of oil burned every single day.
100 million barrels a day.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. That's I can't even imagine that. And then, the consequences, as we've kind of touched on, are pretty scary. Our source mentions extreme weather events, rising sea levels. I mean, the list just goes on and on. It can get kind of overwhelming. Like, where do we even begin with all this?
Well, that's the thing. It is overwhelming because it's all interconnected,
Right.
and that's what makes it so worrying. So take, for example, extreme weather. The source talks about more frequent and more intense heat waves, hurricanes, wildfires, these crazy downpours. And we've all seen the news, right? Those devastating wildfires fueled by these like hotter, drier conditions.
Yeah.
These events, they displace entire communities, they destroy ecosystems. And the ironic thing is they actually release even more carbon into the atmosphere, which just makes the problem worse.
Right. It's like this vicious cycle. And the source paints a pretty scary picture of rising sea levels.
Mm-hmm.
And, coastal communities, especially these low-lying islands,
Yeah,
they're facing like an existential threat.
absolutely.
You mentioned everything being interconnected. So how does sea level rise play into all the other consequences?
Well, think about it. As temperatures rise, glaciers and ice sheets, they melt,
Right.
right? And all that melted water, it goes straight into the oceans. The source says sea levels could rise by like 2 meters by 2100.
2
Yeah,
meters.
that's crazy. That would mean millions of people displaced from their homes. And it would make the impact of, these extreme weather events like hurricanes even worse because you've got even more coastal flooding.
It's just mind-boggling to imagine like entire islands just disappearing. It's hard to even fathom. And then the source also mentions this thing called ocean acidification, which sounds really alarming.
Yeah.
What's happening there?
So imagine you pour vinegar into a fish tank.
Okay.
That's basically what ocean acidification is doing to marine ecosystems.
Oh, wow.
The ocean absorbs a lot of the excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, but that makes the water more acidic. And that's really harmful to, creatures with shells like coral or oysters, and that messes up the whole food web.
It's like a domino effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
One thing leads to another and another. And then there's the impact on biodiversity. The source says over a third of plant and animal species could be extinct by 2050. That's like wiping out, entire chapters from the book of life.
It really is. It's a biodiversity crisis unlike anything we've ever seen. And it just goes to show how interconnected everything is. When one species disappears, it impacts the whole ecosystem. Like, if we lose coral reefs, yeah, that's bad for marine life, but it also affects coastal protection and the people who depend on those reefs for, their livelihood.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff for sure. But, thankfully our source does offer some hope in the form of solutions. So let's shift gears a little bit and explore those. What can we actually do about all this?
Well, the good news is that a lot of the solutions are things that, you can do in your everyday life.
Okay.
It's about making choices that, when everybody does them, they add up to a big difference.
Okay, I like that. So what are some things we can do, like right now?
Well, first and foremost, use less energy. I mean, that seems obvious, but it's amazing how much energy we waste. So switching to LED light bulbs, unplugging devices when you're not using them, washing your clothes in cold water, things like that, they can actually make a real impact.
Yeah, I'm totally guilty of leaving my phone charger plugged in 24/7. Got to work on that.
We all do it. What about travel? I know the source mentions taking fewer flights, which I know is tough. We all love to travel, see the world, right?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
But maybe, think about exploring destinations a little closer to home. Or maybe, opt for train travel when you can. And if you do have to fly, you can look into carbon offsetting programs to kind of balance out your impact.
Right, right. That makes sense. The source also talks about home improvements, things like insulation and energy efficient appliances. Any tips on making those changes? Because those can seem kind of daunting.
Yeah, they can. But, a lot of places have programs or incentives to help make those upgrades more affordable. And remember, even small changes can add up. So ceiling drafts, adding weather stripping to your doors, switching to a programmable thermostat, things like that, they can really reduce energy waste.
Cool. Cool. We also hear a lot about electric vehicles and heat pumps these days. Are those like realistic options for everyone? Or is that just?
Well, they're definitely becoming more and more common, that's for sure. Electric vehicles are becoming more affordable, and there's more charging stations popping up all the time.
Yeah.
And heat pumps, they're super efficient for heating and cooling your home. So, yeah, I think they're becoming more realistic for more people.
Okay, good. Good. And of course, let's not forget about the food we eat. The source suggests eating less red meat, which is something I've been trying to do, and also exploring renewable energy options.
Huh.
How much of an impact can those changes really have?
Oh, they can make a big difference. Reducing our meat consumption, especially beef, can significantly lower our environmental footprint. And switching to renewable energy, I mean, that's a huge step towards a cleaner energy future. You can check if your utility company offers renewable energy options or even look into, installing solar panels on your roof.
Right, right. So we've covered a lot today, from the pretty scary reality of the global warming crisis to some, hopeful solutions and things we can actually do. What really stuck with me is that image of Earth, wrapped in that thickening blanket of greenhouse gases. It's just a powerful reminder of how much our choices actually affect the planet.
Absolutely. And the key takeaway here is that, yeah, the situation is serious, but it's not hopeless. There are things we can do. Every little step we take, no matter how small, it all adds up.
That's a good point. So, knowing what we know now, what choices will you make? We've talked about personal actions, but what about the bigger picture? How can we push for those larger systemic changes to really tackle this thing head on? It's something to think about. That's something to really consider as we move forward on this journey, which is, yeah, it's challenging, but it's not without hope.
Take a close look at the map of America. Do you see the red, yellow, and the green zones? This map shows how soon the different areas of our country will be subjected to devastating climate catastrophes. The red areas represent zones that will be destroyed by disasters and become uninhabitable first. This could happen at any moment, but not later than 5 to 7 years from now. This reality awaits us in the coming years due to our position within the cycle of external cosmic influence, heating our core and triggering the growth of cataclysmic avalanches of destruction. And their intensity will only grow.
We used to only see this kind of scenes in movies, but now it has become our new climate inevitability. So as you go to bed, leave for work, drop off your children at school, just know that this might be the day when the climate devastation will come for you and your children.
It's a verdict. All that will remain of our blue planet is a lifeless semblance of Mars. The probability that we can do something does exist, of course, but it exists purely hypothetically, not practically. Today at the conference, we will discuss existing options for the survival of humanity.
You deserve to know the truth. Global crisis, America.